Joining us on our newsmaker line right now to talk about that is Andrew Handel. Andrew is the Director of the Education and Workforce Development Task Force with the American Legislative Exchange Council. He's joining us on our newsmaker line right now. Andrew, how are you? I guess he's going to leave it up to the states. Can the states take it over, do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, the states have been clamoring for this for, I guess you could say, decades, since the department was first created in 1979. So, the states are ready, willing, they're excited, and we're really looking forward to working with our member lawmakers to help make education freedom a reality for families around the country.
You know, one of the things that made this issue difficult was, even if in Utah, Department of Education funding represents 8% of our education budget, which 8% is less than 10. That sounds like that number wouldn't be significant, but it does amount to over $600 million. And so the idea of getting rid of the Department of Education, when you looked at what $600 million brought statewide to our schools, always seemed like a heavier lift than people might have imagined. But I think what the president's looking to do, and Andrew, this is where I'd love your insight, I don't think that there's $600 million less coming to the state of Utah. I think that he's pointing to the states and the money they would otherwise pay in federal taxes or have block granted back, actually having the states use those dollars for special education or for free and reduced lunch. Is that how you're seeing it as well?
That is exactly it. Yeah. So, I mean, since 1979, the department has spent over $3 trillion. And I mean, look at what we have to show for it, right? I mean, fourth and eighth grade reading scores, for example, since we started tracking those in the early 1990s, somehow they're lower today than they were in the early 1990s. So clearly this whole system is just broken and it needs to change. And but to your point, the president made it clear in his announcement today. He specifically said that programs like Pell Grants, Title I funding, special education funding, those are all core essential services that are not going to go anywhere. The amount of money going to the states is not going to change. What they're really looking to do here is find efficiencies, right? This is a Doge effort in the Department of Education to figure out, best example I can give is if you have a program where the department is spending, let's say, $50 million on administrative expenses, well, what if you got that number down to $10 million? Now that's another $40 million that you can send that actually gets to students in a classroom somewhere. So that's exactly what they're trying to do, and obviously they'll try to shift some of these programs to other agencies. Time will tell where those end up, but nothing's going to change in the short run from a programs and funding perspective.
Andrew, one of the frustrations I've heard from educators here in the state of Utah when it comes to the Department of Education, they love to take the money and use the money to benefit their schools, but their argument is there are so many strings attached as to how we use the money and the programs we can use the money on. It's very, very frustrating to them. Is that one of the issues, do you feel?
Yeah, that's a massive issue. And, frankly, I think it's the major sticking point in why, this administration is taking such a strong stand to close the department. The best way I can put it is, what's best in education policy for Utah might not be what's best in education for Florida.
Yes.
The reality is every state is so unique in its own way. Local communities are so unique. And it just doesn't work having a singular federal bureaucracy overseeing all of this and saying, we'll give you this grant money, but in exchange you have to change your policies and you have to teach a certain way and you have to use certain curriculum. Whatever the strings are, the reality is it's not going to work for every student and it's not going to work for every state. So, that's probably the best part of all this is that, President Trump, you said promises made, promises kept. That's exactly it. He said he wanted to send education back to the states, and that's what he's doing.
Andrew, I've had a gut full of over 700 district judges, federal judges that want to be president of the United States, and it seems like every time President Trump makes some headway, does some things, he accomplishes some things that he campaigned on, that the people want him to do, there's some federal judge out there that wants to say you're not allowed to, and I get to decide what happens. What do the tea leaves say to you about the Department of Education? Are we going to wake up tomorrow and some federal judge is going to say King's X, it doesn't count? I say that the department has to live on and you have to spend and do it as it's been done before. Do you think that's going to happen in this space as we're seeing it happen in other spaces that the administration's working on?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess I would say I wouldn't be shocked if there was some kind of a lawsuit filed. That's probably to be expected from opponents of this. But that being said, though, I mean, the way the executive order is structured in of itself, it makes it clear that the president wants the Secretary of Education to take whatever steps she has within her legal authority to start dismantling that bureaucracy. So, that's a very important sentence there, within her legal authority. And, the reality is he is the chief executive. He is in charge of this department. And, I think this is something voters want to see. They want to see education head back to the states. So, I don't want to try to predict the future, but, I imagine it would stand a pretty strong chance if it was challenged.
Let me ask you this question. How long is this going to take? I mean, could we see a big change within a year? How long do you think it's going to take?
Sure, yeah. I'm honestly not sure how long it's going to take. I think the administration is going to move as rapidly as they can to wind down and transfer out whatever programs and funding they're able to. But the big question mark right now is Congress. I know Senator Cassidy from Louisiana has already publicly said that he's going to introduce a bill to wind the department down. So the question is going to be, when do those bills get introduced and how quickly do they move through that process? Because in order to complete a total dismantling of the department and the bureaucracy there, it will take an act of Congress. So, we'll have to see how quickly they choose to move on it.
Well, we appreciate your time. This is a important day for a lot of people out there who've been, doing whatever they can to make this happen, and Donald Trump did it today. Andrew, thank you very much for a few minutes of your time tonight.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thanks for having me on.